and get this show on the road. So welcome everyone to the webinar for our new statewide job fair initiative. I'm really excited that you could join us. In the chat, if you want to keep telling us what the weather is like, that'd be great. But you can also let us know one thing that you were hoping to get out of the webinar today. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Chelsea Summerlin, and I am the ICFL's Digital Skills Library Consultant. I'm joined today by a couple of other ICFL staff members, Allison and Jennifer. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here real quick. We could start with Allison.
Hello, everyone. Allison Meyer. I'm the Public Library Program Specialist here. I'm sure many of you know our Public Library Consultant, Clay, so I work with Clay to support all of you. Excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Redford. I'm a youth services consultant, and I work primarily on summer learning and also school age and teen services.
Awesome. All right. So here is our agenda for today. We are going to have a quick introduction and we're going to go over the toolkit. And then we're going to talk about programs for teens, adults, and older adults. After that, we're going to talk about the nitty-gritty of participating and wrap up. Today's session is 1 hour and we will get you out of here by 3 p.m. Mountain Time. This webinar is being recorded and everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording. Throw questions in the chat or comments and we will address those as we go. Allison is keeping an eye out for those. If we don't get to your question for any reason or you think of one later, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. We are always happy to chat with you. So, what is the statewide job fair? Well, it's a new initiative modeled after a similar one in the Kentucky. The goal is to provide resources for libraries to host their own job fair. Allison, Jennifer, and I reached out to partners and created materials. From there, you can start planning your programs. We're hoping you'll hold programs during National Library Week from April 19th through the 26th. This program has its own website just chock full of resources. To access the program webpage, you will need to fill out the interest form. Once we receive your submission, you'll receive an email with that web link and a password to log on to it. We are planning on doing this every year, and we're going to need some basic information to do that. The form is quick and easy. Allison just threw it into the chat. It requires your name and contact info, your library's name, and then an acknowledgement that you will use the provided feedback forms. We are going to talk about those more in a bit. The form is due back by the end of the day on March 29th. So let's kind of go over what that toolkit that you'll gain access to contains. So it's got its own website and it's designed to help you implement your programs. There are resources provided by our partners as well, and those are designed for different audiences to support them in their job seeking journey. And then we have some general resources for Idahoans' holistic needs and other more targeted information. So I want to start with our media and programming resources. One fun document that we have is the programming ideas document. We're going to talk about some example workshops or classes that you could host that are in that document. But it also includes a lot of resources and questions that you can ask yourself as you plan. There are sections on reaching out to partners and finding the right folks in your community. There's a piece on outreach and where to advertise the job fair to your patrons. And then it has some programming ideas for both a take-home job fair and an in-person job fair. The resources include general ideas as well as specifics broken down by library type. So if you're in an academic, a public, or a school library, there's some information targeted for your organization. It's also meant to be adaptable for a library of any size. So that take-home job fair might be an easier lift for smaller libraries, and then an in-person, fully fledged job fair might be possible if you've got a bigger location. Beyond the programming ideas document, there are also promotional materials for you to use and make your own. We've got scripts for radio spots, printable flyers, and social media graphics and post copy. There's also an outreach template for you to ask employers or partners to join your job fair. Lastly, you'll find paper and digital data collection forms. Again, we're going to chat more about those towards the end. The rest of the guide includes those resources from our partners. You're going to find specific resources for your target audience, whether that's teens, adults, or older adults. There's also a section for resources in Spanish as well, again, broken down by those three audience types. There are a few resources broken down by region for North Central, Southwestern, South Central, and Southeastern Idaho. This isn't the biggest section since most of the resources are for statewide services that have offices across the state. If you know of any resources or organizations that offer services locally or statewide, please do let me know. The toolkit is meant to be a living document, and we will add resources to it as we find them. The last section is for that general information and resources from our partners that you may find helpful. So that is sort of the broad overview of the website and the toolkit. And from here, we're going to kind of dive in and talk about some programming ideas and ways to make this work for different audiences. And so I am going to pass it over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Chelsea. So there are a few different ways that you can implement the toolkit with teens. You can definitely do a take-home toolkit where it's kind of like a passive program, right? You print off all of the materials. We'll have a lot of linked PDFs on the website. So you print everything off, you slip them a packet, and you wish them luck on their job search or something. And maybe that's all your teens need. Maybe that's the support that they want. Or you can really focus on kind of hard skills or the nuts and bolts of getting your first job. For teens, that could look like, what are the logistics of getting that job? Do you need an email address to apply? How do you fill out a W-4 after you have gotten the job? What is an interview like? How do you apply? What are the application questions that you would fill out? Maybe you could have a series of programs where they fill out mock applications and kind of get practice doing that before, like leading up to the job fair. There can be an interview skills workshop. You could kind of turn that around and have the teens interview each other. Maybe have the teens be the interviewer and kind of be in that interview role and take that role on. You could have employers from your area come in and do a mock interview with teens and give them feedback on their interview skills and talk about what it means to interview with an employer. If you have employers in your area that are maybe hiring seasonal employees for the summer, in April is a good time to maybe they're hiring their summer lifeguards or park cleaner uppers or whatever the teens are working at in your community. Maybe they can have a hiring event at your library as part of this job fair initiative. So you can get really creative just depending on your own community. So those are sort of like getting teens an actual job and um, like connecting them with actual work. There's also another way to look at this, though, where you can help teens understand what jobs they could have in the future and what careers are out there. The website does have a lot of resources for career exploration too. I don't know if you've seen any of PBS's Idaho Jobs Explained videos that are out there, but they have a whole new series that's really wonderful about all the jobs that are available in our state that are sort of unique. So you can take that route too, where you can get teens thinking aspirationally and sort of about their futures, goal setting about how they would get to their job, what they would need to do, what types of training or education they would need to get there. So lots of different ways to approach this with teens. Angela, you said that you were hoping to do a teen resource fair with the toolkit. What do you think that would look like? Like, what are you imagining?
I've been imagining something. We're trying to figure out what to do. We were originally thinking about doing a clothing swap, but it sort of has bloomed, I guess, or blossomed into more of a resource fair, trying to get teens in contact with local agencies that are designed for them,
Mhm.
and getting the two together. And then it also kind of coincided with this job fair idea, and I was thinking a lot of teens are getting summer jobs these days, and I thought it would be really good to get them prepared for that.
Yeah, I love that. Um, uh, we do know that teens need lots of different resources, and you could bundle this in with lots of different things. And the job fair is a great way to connect with your community partners, whether those be job related or related to providing community supports. And wrapping that all into one event is an excellent idea. I love that. Does anybody else have an idea for how they might serve teens with some of this type of resource? I see that Mary is maybe trying to unmute. There you are. I was hoping that you would talk about your um, adulting series. Is that what you were going to talk about?
No, the plan for the teens, we have a program called Vibe and Thrive, and
Hmm.
exploring doing more of a career exploration, but with our seniors. We have a seniors group called Seniors of the West. So we're hoping to collaborate with them and bring them in from to talk about like their past careers as a career exploration.
I love that. Your library was the one that took teens to the coffee house too, right? To uh, first of all, order their first coffee and get the experience of doing that for the first time, but also talked with the owner of the coffee house about what he expects from teen workers, which is another excellent way to kind of introduce teens to the working world. But I love the idea of pairing the teens with mentors in the community who can kind of like give them a broader view. That's excellent.
I don't think any coffee was consumed. It was other type of beverages, but he did do a great presentation on what he looks like, what he looks for in teen employees and interviewing skills and that type of thing.
And Mary, which library are you from? So people know to look for ideas.
Probably the Tetons Library.
I'll leave the Tetons. So there is the great thing about the toolkit is that it is really flexible and it can work for so many different types of libraries. It's meant to be used in many different ways. But if you find yourself kind of at a loss, like you're not sure how to use something, that's where Chelsea and Allison and I come in. So we're happy to be a sounding board. So if you are feeling lost, just send an email. With that, I'm going to send it over to Chelsea to talk about adults.
Yes. All right. Thank you for sharing those ideas for teens. Adults probably might focus on a few different things. So to use the toolkit, you can start by kind of thinking about the times that we're in and maybe what programs might help those. So what effect is the economic situation having on your adult patrons? Do they want to upskill or reskill? Do they need a secondary income stream? Are they having trouble navigating unemployment resources? There's a couple of program ideas that are within that guide on the screen here, but there's a whole bunch more in the guide as well, focused on adults, teens, and older adults. But a core skills workshop is always a good choice for adults. You can focus on identifying those skills that are transferable and then how to present those within resumes and interviews. We all know that adults have a ton of different experiences, but it's sometimes hard to think about how those experiences are useful throughout the course of your career, right? But you can think about how they do translate into those marketable skills, especially for an industry that they might be trying to break into. My favorite example for this is always customer service skills. Those are universally useful, even if you don't have customers, because you're probably going to have coworkers at least, and those skills do work for your coworkers too. Another idea is to have a workshop focused on starting a side hustle. I like to get really practical in workshops like these. You can reach out to the Chamber of Commerce or another entrepreneurship organization and ask them to talk about successful small businesses in your community, or have one of those small businesses come in and do a play-by-play of how they started and got to where they are. You can also reach out to a local bank or another financial institution and tell them, I want folks to be able to walk out of this knowing exactly what they need to get a small business loan. Really practical things you can sink your teeth into. And then other ways to increase participation from adults, which are sometimes the hardest group to get into the building, as we all know. Um, Think about anything you can do to make it easier for them to attend. Could you host a children's program at the same time so they can bring their kids if they'd like? What about providing snacks and networking time so it's part job fair, part social hour, part family event? Is there a way to make it fun and interesting? Um, it's not just teenagers that like to have fun, right? Adults also like to enjoy the activities that they're doing. And I don't know about y'all, but I like things that make my life easier and do not feel like just one more item on my to-do list, which is long enough without extra things on it. Um, and so, like Jennifer did, I'd like to kick it back to you all and see if any of you have done any programs for adults around job fairs, workforce development, anything like that. If you have, we'd love to hear about your experiences. And if you haven't, is this sparking anything for you? Are you thinking about ways that you might be able to use the toolkit?
Hi, this is Michael from the Caldwell Public Library. I think a lot of what we see is older adults returning to the workforce, and there's a lot of digital skills that aren't there in the application process. So I think a lot of our focus is going to have to be on some of that, like how to configure your resume on a computer, how to upload it to potential employers, how to keep a copy of your resume so that you're not coming in and, trying to edit a PDF or trying to write it from scratch again, things of that nature. So,
Yes, Michael, 100% agree to all of that. I know that Allison's going to talk a little bit of specifics about older adults too, and that tech and those digital literacy skills and the way that we work in the 21st century it's different than it was. Even if you retired in the 90s, things are significantly different than they used to be. June's also put into the chat that she's partnered with the Department of Labor before to host job fairs or put together job fair in a bag type projects. And now she's hosting a monthly employment extravaganza with Equus Job Services. That is so cool. And Trio. We've got resources from the Department of Labor and Equus. So that is awesome, June. Can I ask how those have been attended, what the numbers you're getting, and what library you're from? If you don't mind sharing those. You can put those in the chat too. Oh, tech issues. Perfect. Thanks, Junie. All right. Well, she's putting those in the chat. Anything else spark for anyone around adult services? Looks like everybody's just getting ideas today, which is okay. That's part of the point. And we can talk and dive into more ideas. We'll talk about more events that we're going to do to help you plan coming up. But for now, I will pass it over to Allison to talk about programs for older adults.
Yes, thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, Michael, for starting the conversation. Because we did want to spend a bit of time focusing on older adults specifically and what kind of programs that might be unique to those patrons. And when you're thinking about planning, you can kind of think about what you're already hearing from these patrons, especially if you're in a public library, you probably have a sense of things that are coming up frequently, areas where these patrons might be struggling, and opportunities for programs in that area. So, as Michael mentioned, that could be a lot of help with digital literacy and tech skills. It could also be, are they struggling with 21st century work culture? And could you build a program around elements of that? So we have a couple of program ideas up there on the slide. One could be on building a workshop on building profiles on LinkedIn, Handshake, or Indeed. And that could be an opportunity to really focus on the differences between professional and private social media accounts. And if they're unfamiliar with these accounts, you can really just focus on basics and spend the time there on creating an account. If they already have accounts, you can focus on how to search, how to reach out to potential employers, really how to navigate the landscape of those social media platforms. And that could even be the basis of a two-part workshop, depending on the kind of interest you're getting. And then also sort of related to what Michael was saying, another idea is just to have classes on Microsoft Office, Google Suite, essential skills on those platforms, but also how to boost productivity. So you can think about what has changed over the past 20 years. And there are certainly skills that could transfer from Windows 98, and it's good to emphasize that also. But then to think about the new skills that um, you can help build. And I think anyone who has experience hosting tech classes knows that there can be some challenge too with people coming in with different levels of background knowledge. So it can be helpful to think about how you might be able to build in some one-on-one coaching opportunities within those programs. So that can be through partnerships and having extra people on hand to help with that. Um, uh, I would love to, when we open it up, kind of hear about people's experiences with tech classes and coaching in particular as well. Um, as always, targeted outreach can really help drive interest to these programs. And so this can be a good opportunity to partner with your local senior center and get people in who aren't regular patrons to the library. And then your frontline staff can also really help promote when they're getting these questions to promote these programs. And for everyone, but perhaps especially for older adults, really thinking about social connection in these programs is really important as well. So you could think about building time in for patrons to really interact with one another in peer support groups. And this could also be a time to really talk up your other resources. So other programs for older adults, but also promoting resources to combat loneliness, anything like that. So we would love, I'm seeing some things come through the chat also, I think, related to Chelsea's question, but we would love to hear um, in this area, like what you might have done in the past or some dreams as you're planning for the future um, for reaching older adults. And feel free to either throw more things in the chat or come off mute and talk about what you're thinking or what you've experienced. Julie, this is the first chat I'm seeing, said I taught taught beginning computer classes several years ago. We started out with a very basic, this is a mouse, this is a cursor, this is the desktop, this is the keyboard. We played solitaire to learn how to use the mouse, which is great. It's often like with these kinds of classes, like taking those like several steps back. Um, and you can always start with basics with what you're offering and then sort of see like what the interest is and kind of define programs going forward here. So I think that with the job fair is a good opportunity to start with some of this, and then it could give you some other ideas for program ideas going forward. Suzanne says we offer one-on-one tech tutors. Mostly seniors take advantage of this. I think that tech one-on-one tech tutoring option has become, I think, very effective for a lot of libraries.
This is Todd. I also work with Michael over at the Caldwell Public
Hello.
Library. We also, similar to what Julie and Suzanne were saying, we do tech tutors. We also have once a month an open tech lab for people that
Nice.
have trouble booking out ahead of time, so they can just drop in, and we try to do our best to accommodate. Um, I, and then. Uh, we are also next month, and I've taught them in the past at other libraries, but similar, the computer basics classic classes with basic tech skills and stuff like that. But we're starting trying a couple dedicated curriculum-based classes that we are doing from the digital skills program through ICFL as well, based on that
Nice.
curriculum. So yeah,
Yay.
we'll be doing the staying safe online and the computer basics. So
Excellent.
thank you for those resources as well.
Excellent. Chelsea is cheering, I see.
I am. Thank you. Love a shout out.
Anything else for older adults? We can go back to some of these other chats as well. But wanted to make sure we had some time for other things that have been successful or other things you want to try for older adults. Let's see, I'm going back over some other chats. Kind of talking back when we were talking about adults, but can apply to a lot of groups. Boise Public Library had regular resume and cover letter workshops, which has been attended by a few people a month. But this year we relaunched a much bigger program. So far there's been one session which was attended by about 9 people, um, which is pretty great attendance for like a first uh, rebranded opportunity. And then Suzanne said, with regards to teens, our local high school leads a finance fair for high school seniors. This year, the library is participating, but the fair gives every student a job and salary, and they have to travel around the auditorium using their funds to pay for housing, utilities, savings, recreation, childcare, healthcare, etc. They also participate in a Jeopardy type trivia game on finance, not expressly a job fair, but is a great way to get students to think about creating a life they can afford.
You could do
Um,
a teen program where you break down your first paycheck and talk
yeah,
about what taxes you pay.
taxes. Yes, that's a great idea. I'm feeling a little bit stressed talking about these program ideas, but great ideas for teens. And then let's see, I saw something else going. Yes, and then Chelsea very helpfully threw in a plug for Idaho Digital Skills. Lots of great resources there that are relevant for this job fair, but also many, many things going forward. I think I'll turn it back over to Chelsea.
Yeah, I think I'll highlight a couple other comments in the chat that I saw. It looks like Suzanne says that with regards to teens, our local high school leads a finance fair for teens. Oh, you read that one.
I did read that one.
It's
Yeah.
the other one from Junie that I think we
Okay.
missed. We talked about resources available to job seeker, Equus partnerships with the Department of Labor and programs, how they can connect them, how Trio helps job seekers, doing interview prep, job searching advice, resume and cover letter workshopping, or whatever else job seekers want. So that is awesome to hear as well, Junie. So thank you all so much for participating and sharing some of your ideas and experiences. We appreciate that. There will be more opportunities at the end and then at other workshops. But unfortunately, I'm going to take us on to the more boring stuff here. So program evaluations, unless you're a data nerd like me, are probably a little more boring for most of you all. But the only requirement to get access to this toolkit is that you use the provided feedback forms. There are paper and digital forms available on the job fair website. They are under the media and programming resources. The paper forms contain a link to the survey, to the digital form, and a QR code. After the program concludes, we will send you the results of the survey, so you're not going to lose any data. Your patrons will be able to select which library hosted the job fair or provided those packets. So again, you'll still see what your patrons are saying about the programs that you held. Other questions on the form include asking them to rate the job fair on a scale of 1 to 5, asking whether the information they received met their needs, and if not, what needs weren't met, asking them why they attended in the first place, and then an open-ended question just asking for additional feedback. Lastly, if they want to, they can provide their email address for follow-up questions. Probably when the program ends sometime around June, I'm going to send an email asking for any of those paper forms that you received. You can send those back to me, and we will combine the paper forms with the digital forms so we get an aggregate of all of that good data. I have done adult programming before, and I do know, teen programming probably as well, that getting patrons to fill out feedback forms is really, really hard. So we're not expecting a 100% return on the forms. We have some realism built in here, but do try your best to get patrons to turn those forms in and to fill them out. We're committed to doing this program for 2 years, and that data will help us update the toolkit for next year and get resources that we maybe weren't able to do, figure out different ways of hosting, other types of support that we could be offering that we missed this year. For you all, that data is really going to help us improve and will determine the program's future. So we are on to any upcoming events. So on March 3rd, we're going to host office hours, which will be pretty casual, just a time to get together, ask questions if you're stuck on any planning or got any questions for us and you just kind of want to talk to your fellow libraries. And Allison, Jennifer, and we will be here to chat with you, figure out how things are going. You can bounce ideas off of us, anything like that. And then the hype session, which should be super duper fun on April 13th. We will have folks from the Department of Labor come in and talk about their resources, and we can get everybody excited for the job fair, which again is going to run from the 19th through the 26th during National Library Week. So if you have any questions that may have cropped up, anything like that, you can feel free to throw those in the chat or come off mute. Our contact information is on the screen. Allison just put our emails in the chat as well. Please feel free to reach out to any of us at any point. You don't have to wait for those office hours on March 3rd to ask us questions. Any questions you have about this or any resources, planning ideas, anything like that, feel free to reach out to us. And if you don't have any questions, would still love to hear about all of the fun ideas that y'all are planning. We'll give you a few minutes to put anything in the chat. We won't close the room right this second if we've got a quiet group. Angela, that is a great question. She asks in the chat, do you have to use the toolkit during National Library Week? Our teen event is likely going to be in May. And the answer is no, you do not have to use the toolkit during National Library Week. We just thought it would be a good marketing opportunity for you all and for us. For National Library Week, we can pump up libraries and all of the economic support that we do provide, that good return on investment that investing in your library gets you during a week when there's lots of some generated media attention on libraries anyway. But if you're hosting a program in May, that's also fabulous. Or in June, that toolkit will be open and accessible through the end of the calendar year for folks. And then I am going to close it down so that we can revamp it for next year and get updated statistics for people that are using it. So the interest form is just a requirement so I can see which people are using it because we need that data for program development. Allison threw a link to the interest form in the chat again. It is also on that statewide job fair landing page as well. And it is, the interest form itself is going to close on March 29th, at the end of the day on March 29th. So got a few months to fill it out. All right. Allison, Jennifer, anything you all want to add for the good of the order?
I will just say that I am so excited to see what all of you are going to do with these resources. And also, this is our first year doing this, and we are aware that we have not captured all of the resources out there. So when you see gaps, send us an email. And if there are regional resources that we are missing, please let us know. We can't wait to add to our toolkit. Help us curate it and make it better. We appreciate all of your help in advance, and I can't wait to hear about all of your amazing events because I know I'm always blown away at how your communities kind of inform and shape your different events. Everybody's events kind of reflect the communities that they're in, and it's just amazing to see what all of you are doing.
Now, got a question in the chat. Is there a section for undergraduate and graduate students? There are a lot of college and career planning resources. You'll find some of those in like the teens section and then some of them in the adult section, depending kind of on where they fit. If it's like adult education or more like how to pick a degree, that type of stuff is going to be in the teen section. So it's there, it's just not broken out into that specific category, but that's a great question.
And there's a lot of apprenticeship resources that kind of straddle like teens or young adults or like graduate level. So yeah, it's hard to get super granular with all of them.
And you will, if you're digging into the toolkit, you might see that like, oh, some of that was in the adult section and it's also in the older adult section because it applies to both of those folks. So if they fit in both categories, they're in both categories just to make it easy. So you don't have to print every single document from every single category because you'll end up with a few duplicates. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we will go ahead and wrap this up. I want to say that I am so thankful for you all taking time out of your afternoons here to get more information. I'm really, really excited to see your programs. You all are out there doing the real work, and we're just resource gathering for you. So I am just super duper excited for this. This is, as Jennifer said, the first year that we're offering this. So I cannot wait to see all the cool things that you all do and the support that Idahoans receive in their job fair and in their journeys. So thank you again, and we hope to see you at the office hours on March 3rd. Have a great Thursday, everybody.